Government has released the draft aviation policy. Ajay Singh, the chairman of SpiceJet, is joining in now exclusively, and Shereen Bhan is also here to take us through that exclusive interview. Shereen, over to you.
Well, thanks very much, guys. Let's go across to Ajay Singh, the chairman of SpiceJet. Sir, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV18. Let me start by asking you for first your comment as far as the civil aviation draft policy is concerned, because the major thrust seems to be on regional connectivity, whether it's through the regional connectivity scheme, it's through no-frill airports. Would you say that that, in a sense, is the high point as far as this policy is concerned?
I think several high points, one of which, of course, is regional connectivity. And as you know that we've always been great supporters of regional connectivity. I think it's a shame that of the 475 airports we have today, only 75 are operational. There's great growth happening in the economies in small towns, the tier 2 and tier 3 and other smaller towns. And I think if we can provide them air connectivity, you would see a multiplication of that growth, both in terms of their economy and in terms of tourism. So I think the focus on regional connectivity is a good one. I think there are several other highlights, like what they've done in terms of trying to reduce the cost and make MROs more viable and enable airlines in India to use those MROs. The ease of doing business, air cargo, and several initiatives, I think, which are
I'll talk to you about the changes that they've brought in as far as the MROs are concerned in just a bit. If I may continue our conversation as far as regional connectivity is concerned, and I wanted to ask you what you make of the regional connectivity scheme and that viability gap fund that the government is proposing to set up, and also this business of capping fares at 2,500 rupees per hour, because I understand that the cost is actually 4,000 rupees. Is it a sensible way to actually approach this idea by way of a cap, or let the market decide and let competitive forces decide?
I think this idea of putting in place a regional connectivity fund is a good one. A similar scheme was used when they wanted to build the highway development project in way back in Mr. Vajpayee's time, and a cess was put on petrol, and that money was used to fund the construction of national highways. So I think the idea of a regional connectivity fund is a good one. I don't necessarily agree with this capping of fares at 2,500 rupees. Because when you set a cap, you also need to start setting floors, and when you set floors, then fares don't remain dynamic, and all the stimulation that we do by offering fares at 500 rupees or 1,000 rupees, and the ability that gives to people to start flying, people who have never flown before, and the expansion of the market that happens as a consequence, I think that stops to happen. So I think government should stay away from capping fares. I think they can set up this fund. They can provide viability gap funding wherever required, and they can use the money to develop airports. But I think they should let airlines determine fares by themselves. This dynamic fare model has worked pretty well so far, and the market is growing at 20%, can grow faster as well. But I think capping of fares would act as an impediment to the growth.
So they have invited public comments, and you would clearly, in your public comments, state to the regulator as well as the government that capping of fares is a bad idea. Would it, if this does indeed go through, Mr. Singh, will it deter your regional connectivity plans?
Well, I think overall it's a good policy and should help encourage regional connectivity. Perhaps if they can clarify that instead of a cap, this would be an average fare, which in addition to the viability gap funding, the airlines are able to charge. Perhaps in some sectors where there are no flights available, it could become viable for airlines to offer flights. But all in all, I think the policy is actually a good one as far as regional connectivity is concerned. And as you said, it's a draft policy. They have invited comments, and we will address comments to them. And given the fact that SpiceJet is the largest regional player in the market today, we have 15 aircraft, by far the largest number of flights into small destinations. I think that we should be able to persuade the government to look at what we are saying seriously.
Okay. What else would you like to see changed? If I could ask you for broad comments in terms of what you've heard, whether it's with the regional connectivity, you've already given us your point of view, but you know, there are several parameters. Of course, as far as the MROs are concerned, that is where the big benefit has come in. That's where the sweeteners have been, in that sense, given out by, have been proposed to be given out. But what other comments would you like to offer in terms of what you've heard so far in the draft policy?
Firstly, of course, the MRO policy is a very good one. And this is something that we've been saying for several years now, that it makes very little sense for airlines in India to be taking their planes overseas for servicing and overall, when this really should be done in India. In India, we have obviously the facilities available, the skills available, and a low cost base, and potential anchor customers in airlines like SpiceJet and others. So it makes sense for them to encourage setting up India as an MRO hub. So if India can become a BPO hub, we think that there's no reason why India cannot become an MRO hub as well. So in that sense, I think government has done well in that policy. I think a couple of areas which perhaps they need to address, and we will of course be giving our comments to them. One is in terms of the ability to create international hub airports in India of the sort that Dubai and Abu Dhabi have created, and I think there is not enough said on that. The second place where I think some more work is required is in terms of reducing the cost of ATF. Now they have spoken about that in the context of regional connectivity, but in terms of you know, the large airports and national connectivity, there is nothing said. So I think that there need to be some steps taken to ensure that India doesn't really have the most expensive aviation fuel in the world.
You're absolutely right. The policy has fallen short as far as some of those issues are concerned. Where it's also fallen short is on the controversial 5/20 issue, and the policy pretty much says that we're still looking at three options: either keep it as is, abolish it, or bring in domestic flying credits to link international flying rights. What are you going to say in your comments, sir?
Well, you know, this is not a clear cut and dried answer, really. You know, I think there is a presumption that the abolition of the 520 rule is something which is obvious and should be done. You know, we don't agree. We think that any rule that you form now, whether it's the 520, the abolition of it, or something in between, needs to be well thought out and should serve the larger goal of ensuring that India does become a global aviation hub. And right, that, you know, we can create our own international airlines and so on. You know, so any new rule will be also judged by the parameter
of whether... You're going to vote against the abolition of 5/20?
No, absolutely. I think this needs to be looked at seriously in terms of what the 520 has brought to the country, and whether the abolition of that would be fair and create a level playing field between the players who served out the 520 and the new guys who come in. So I think it needs to be thought through, and I think the draft is I think very honest in saying that, look, here are three views which have been presented, and asking for comments, and then coming to a conclusion after receiving those comments.
Okay, I know which side your comments are going to be, but Mr. Singh, let me also ask you, because though it's conditional, the government has said that it could look at enhancing the FDI cap beyond 49%, in fact even above 50%, but the caveat is that only if there is an open sky policy for countries lying within the 5,000-kilometer radius. Do you believe that this is going to, in that sense, be the fresh trigger as far as investments into this sector is concerned?
See, no policy is ever cast in stone, and they've talked about a policy review after 5 years. In terms of an open sky policy, I mean, if that's the need of the hour after 5 years, then certainly they need to look at it. But an open sky policy also, I think, needs to be reciprocal. So if we provide open skies, then the countries with whom we are speaking with should also provide open skies and also sixth freedom. So you know, it's I think it's a good idea to see how best India can leverage its.
Well, there was